Hello, welcome in to episode 29 of the Intern's Oddities. So today, first off, I wanted to point out this little thing. I don't know how well you can see it. It doesn't look like you can see it too well. I might need to work on that a little bit. I am testing out a new intern logo, but yeah, skipping past that. If you see this little ticker down here, we have a website now. Very good stuff going on over there. Got all our streams linked up there. Got a merchandise store. All sorts of cool stuff going on there. We even have these uncanny forums now. All right. So got the announcements out of the way. Got a few things out of the way. Some exciting stuff going on over here at this Uncanny Media Network, ltatm.net. Let's talk about the madness. So first off, recently we did an episode on the SAR scanning and the stuff that they found under the pyramids, supposedly. But as we mentioned, there's an issue and we will never know the truth unless they let us look at that. But that's highly unlikely that they're going to let anyone actually get in there and see what's going on in any meaningful way. So all of this is just pure conjecture and theory, but we can, since it is Egypt, there is quite a bit of lore surrounding Egypt. And one theory out of all the stuff that I've been listening to and watching and reading, out of all the media that which I've been consuming on this and my research, one thing stood out to me that really caught my attention and I found intriguing. A lot of people have been suggesting that they think this might be the halls of Amenthes. Now, if you don't know what that is, because I didn't know what that was until recently, and I was like, what is that? And they just kind of, summarized it as like a hall of knowledge, a hall of records of sorts. Kind of like the Great Library of Alexandria or the Akashic Records, a great hall of records and knowledge. So I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to look a little bit deeper into that. So here's what I found out about that. The Duat is another name for it, and Amenthes, or the Duat, is a concept in ancient Egyptian mythology involving death. It is most often seen as a realm where people go after they die. Due to linguistic shifts within ancient Egypt, it has also been called Te and Amenthes, which is the one I'm using. The Te is the Coptic usage, and Amenthes, the one that I've heard most people using, is from ancient Greek. Now, what is known of the Duat derives principally from lunary texts such as the Book of Gates, the Book of Caverns, the Coffin texts, the Amduat, and the Book of the Dead, among many other sources. It is generally best known as a subterranean realm that not only houses the deceased, but a variety of deities, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. So, it's basically like the underworld. Heaven, hell, underworld, purgatory. It's like an afterlife, a spirit realm. Okay? Common deities depicted in these texts are Osiris, Anubis, Thoth, Horus, and Mot in various forms. While all of these documents involve the Duat, each of them fulfilled a different purpose and depict the Duat in a variety of unique ways. The realm is most often depicted as a setting for a variety of rituals and mythological events, especially the journey and judgment of the soul after death and the nightly rebirth of the sun god Ra. The Duat is divided into sections by 12 guarded gates that represent each hour of the night and are closely associated with the journey of Ra and prominently feature Osiris, god of the Duat and personification of rebirth. Now, what this reminds me of, personally, is it reminds me of Dante's Inferno. when he's going through all the different layers of hell in the underworld. And there is a lot of Greek mythology in that, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's what it reminds me of, is like God of War, Dante's Inferno type stuff. And of course, Hades. It makes you think of Hades and Hercules, many things like that. So, in the geography of the Duat, to connect this realm to the material world, burial chambers formed touching points between the mundane world and the Duat. As such, the west bank of the Nile was associated with the dead, and funeral barges would mimic the sun god Ra's journey through the night sky during the day. To further this connection, the Duat is often described as having many realistic features such as rivers, islands, fields, paths, and lakes. Although texts also describe fantastic lakes of fire, walls of iron, and trees of turquoise, these lands are described as being dark and were partitioned with a series of gates and mostly identified as Shetit, a dangerous land translated as the beyond. Descriptions of the Duat often follow the same theme with titles such as the hidden place, described as a region where mortals and the divine are absent, and road of the secret things of Restau, a road that Ra passes in his nightly journey. So basically, as we mentioned before, it's basically their version of the afterworld, the afterlife, the underworld, and it is where your soul goes after you pass on. And it looks like you go through different gates, which seems to be a common theme in Egyptian lore from what I've been looking at recently. Now, important locations pertaining to the deceased would be the Hall of Truth, often depicted alongside the weighing of the heart ritual in Books of the Dead and mentioned in the 6th hour of Ra's journey. Now, the weighing of the heart ritual that it mentions right there is actually when the one that I'm sure most of you probably know about is when they take a feather and they weigh it against your heart. Now, see, here's the common misconception. Most people are like, not your heart, sorry. They weigh it against your soul. Now, here's the common misconception. I feel like many people believe that they're like, oh, the feather is, going to be such a lightweight object that, of course, it's not going to weigh as much as your soul, but it has nothing to do with physical weight of your soul. My understanding is the weight of the soul is determined by the sins that you commit and the guilt that you feel. So you can commit all the worst sins, but if you don't feel guilty about it, your soul would be weightless. And vice versa. You could commit no sin at all, nothing. You could be a completely perfect person. You could be a complete saint. And if you feel guilty, like you have anxiety, okay? If you had anxiety and you felt guilty for no reason at all, your soul would weigh heavy with that guilt and you would be sent to the bad side of the afterlife just for having some anxiety. That would be awful. But my understanding is it's more about your guilt than the actual sins that you commit themselves, if that makes sense. Now, there is with that ritual that is known as the weighing of the heart ritual. If the dead are found virtuous, they will be permitted to dwell in Aaru, also known as the Field of Reeds. It is described as a paradise where the dead could live their former life with their loved ones without pain or suffering. Harvest of crops is often featured in depictions of Aaru, as it was believed that the harvests were never poor and the land eternal spring. So basically, Ayadu is essentially the Egyptian version of heaven. Now back to the deities. Here's the interesting part. This is the part I like. I like the Egyptian deities. They were really interesting to me. So there are hundreds of different divinities of varying importance related to the Duat throughout time, with the most referenced being Osiris, who is believed to be the lord of the realm and personifies rebirth and the afterlife. In his own mythology, he himself is reborn after his brother Seth slays him and Osiris's wife. Isis partially revives him. He is depicted as a man with green skin, partially wrapped in bandages. And if you wonder why I don't show images very often, it's just I am very concerned about copyright and I just don't want to get hit. So that's why. But my source that I'm getting this information from is just the Wikipedia page, to be upfront and honest with everybody. But I do feel that, something like this, it feels like it, take it with a grain of salt, obviously, but it feels accurate. I don't see any obvious signs of tampering or anything like that. Like, it feels like it's well known information throughout history. But if anything I say is inaccurate in any way, just let me know. But mostly I'm just getting this information out there in a new format, in a new medium, to try to present this information to as many people as possible, because I find it interesting, and I also like to add the commentary and what I think on this information as well. So, Anubis, son of Osiris and Nephthys, who weighs the heart of the deceased. His domains also cover the embalming and mummification process, as well as acting to guide souls to the Duat upon death. He is depicted with the black head of a canine, most often assumed to be a jackal. So that's the one with the little dog head. If you've seen that on, the ancient hieroglyphics and stuff, I think that's the one with the little dog head. It's basically kind of like a wolf almost. Thoth, who records the verdict of the weighing of the heart, he is most often depicted as an ibis-headed man. So that's a bird head. It looks almost like a stork. The ibis are a group of long-legged, wading birds in the family. Ooh, let me try to pronounce this one. Threskiornithidae. Threskiornithidae that inhabit wetlands, forests, and plains. Ibis derives from the Latin and ancient Greek word for this group of birds. Okay. So it's a bird-headed man with a stylus and tablet. So, see, I have images in my own head for all of these because I'm a big fan of the Persona games. So they deal with a lot of lore from different religions and mythologies throughout history, but that's a side tangent. I'm not going to get into all that. Horus, son of Osiris and Isis, who protects Ra during his journey throughout the Duat and is heir to Osiris. So he's basically kind of like the prince almost. And Moat, who is both the goddess of order and the conception of order, balance, and truth itself. She is the feather that is weighed against the heart in the weighing of the heart ritual. Oh wow, so Maat is actually in the form of the feather. I never realized the feather was actually a god or goddess. I never realized the feather was a goddess. That's interesting. And I thought I knew that ritual so well. Amit, of whom eats the hearts and souls of those who cannot pass the weighing of the heart ritual. She is often depicted near the scales in books of the dead with the face of a crocodile, the mane and front half of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. Well, that one is pretty interesting. Definitely. And then next we have Ra, the sun god, who must journey through the Duat every night to be reborn every morning. And Apep, the personification of darkness and true chaos, who attempts to devour Ra and bring about eternal chaos. Now, as far as the housing of the souls in the afterlife, it says, in order to receive judgment, the dead journeyed through the various parts of the Duat to be judged. If the deceased was successfully able to pass various challenges, then they would reach the judgment of the dead. In this ritual, the deceased's first task was to correctly address each of the 42 assessors of Mat by name. And these assessors of Mat were 42 minor ancient Egyptian deities of the Mat charged with judging the souls of the dead in the afterlife by joining the judgment of Osiris in the weighing of the heart. And so they had to address each of these 42 assessors of Mat by name while reciting the sins they did not commit during their lifetime. Did not commit. See, they try to trip you up with that language right there, putting that not in there. Why would you recite the sins you didn't commit? After confirming that they were sinless, the heart of the deceased was weighed by Anubis against the feather of Mat, which represents truth and justice. Any heart that is heavier than the feather failed the test and was rejected and eaten by Amenthes. Oh, so it was the heart. So is it the heart or the soul? I've heard contradictory things, but right here specifically on the Wikipedia page, it specifically says the heart. So if you know one way or the other, let me know in the comments what you think. And it was rejected and eaten by Amenthes, the devourer of souls, as these people were denied existence after death in the Duat. The souls that were lighter than the feather would pass this most important test and would be allowed to travel to Aaru, which, as we said earlier, is essentially their version of heaven. The Duat is not equivalent to the conceptions of hell in the Abrahamic religions, in which souls are condemned with fiery torment. The absolute punishment for the wicked in ancient Egypt thought was the denial of an afterlife to the deceased, ceasing to exist in the intellectual form seen through the devouring of the heart by Amit. And last but not least, we have the journey of the sun. Each night, Ra traveled through the Duat, bringing revivification to the dead as their main benefit. When in the underworld, he was in his ram-headed form, Af. Ra traveled under the world upon his Etet barge from west to east on the course of the underground journey. He was transformed from his aged Atum form into his young Khepri form, the new dawning sun. The role of the dead king, worshipped as a god, was also central to the mythology surrounding the concept of Duat, often depicted as being identical with Ra. Along with the sun god, the dead king traveled through the Duat, the kingdom of Osiris, using the special knowledge he was supposed to possess, which was recorded in the coffin texts that served as a guide to the hereafter not just for the king, but for all deceased. According to the Amduat, the underworld consists of 12 regions, signifying the 12 hours of the sun god's journey through it, battling Apep in order to bring order back to the earth in the morning. As his rays illuminated the Duat during the journey, they revived the dead who occupied the underworld and let them enjoy life after death during the hour of the night when they were in the presence of the sun god, after which they resumed their sleep, waiting for the god's return the following night. So that is the information that we have about the Duat or Amenthes, which some people believe may be related to these tunnels that they believe they have found underneath the Giza pyramids with the SARS scanning. But as I stated before, all of this is completely theoretical, as they will likely never let anyone actually get in there, which is really just kind of sad because, some people they say that they want to argue that it would be too invasive, and they only want, and the scanning, they only allowed it because it was non-invasive, and they don't want to get in there and break anything. But I've also been hearing that they have drills, like oil drills, that can go and drill into something very accurately and very carefully, and when they get to the bottom, they can just pop out a camera with a microphone on it. Just like it's built into the drill. A camera with a microphone is like built into the drill, and they can use that when they get down there. And apparently the reasoning for that, so I've been told, is apparently they can like hear the oil or something. I'm not entirely, I didn't really understand it. I'm not really an oil expert, but the point being that they have the technology where you can, get a camera and a microphone onto one of those drills, and they're very accurate, so they could easily, get in there with no minimal damage to the structures, you know. So what exactly are they trying to hide? Because like the thing that stands out to me is they were really, really fast to come out and say, "Oh no, this is fake news. This isn't true at all." And I'm like, "Okay, well, if it's not true and you really, really want to settle these rumors and all this, insanity and all this chaos, and you want to prove, what's what, let someone in there." But like they won't even send their own people in there. Like, we don't even say it has to be us. Like, send one of your own crew in there, something. Like, what are you trying to hide, guys? Gals? Everybody. Like, what are they trying to hide over there? But thank you for coming to hang out with me. This has been episode 29 of the Intern's Oddities, and it was interesting. I haven't really gotten very deep into Egyptian culture probably since high school. So this was pretty interesting. And I will see you next time. And as we always say around here, why be boring when you can be uncanny? See you next time.